Back in 1888, London was tormented by Jack the Ripper, who not only terrorized his victims, but also grotesquely killed and mutilated them. Yes, but he also sought a mysterious portal to the underworld, known as the Heart of Damnation, a place in hell where he felt he could belong. His killing spree of prostitutes came to an end when he brutally extracted Mary Kelly's heart and unlocked the sinister power he so desperately desired. This act didn't just end his mortal life, it began his everlasting agony as a Cenobite. The extremely depraved Jack the Ripper did not fade away into the shadows of history. Nah, rather he took on a new and even more horrifying shape, a Cenobite named Saucy Jack, born from the very body and corrupted soul of the Ripper himself. So without further ado, let's explore Saucy Jack's evolution into a Cenobite, a horrific story of plain terror and dark ambitions. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
Thou shalt not bow down before any graven image.
Who are the Cenobites? Despite their appearance, Cenobites aren't devils, but are extra-dimensional beings from a realm beyond our reality. You'll find these extraterrestrial creatures in Clive Barker's works, like The Hellbound Heart and The Scarlet Gospels, as well as in 11 Hellraiser films. These beings are twisted and brainwashed so they can torture mankind forever in the labyrinth. Every single Cenobite, except Angelique, the daughter of the mighty demon god Leviathan, starts their lives off as mere humans. The only way for them to enter our world is through a time and space rift that can be opened and closed with the use of unique artifacts. The most common artifact is an ordinary puzzle box called the Lament Configuration. A group of Cenobites shows up when someone cracks this puzzle. Quite the surprise. If Leviathan thinks the person is worthy, they're given a ride back to hell, where they're remade in a transformation chamber by the engineer. The transformation can be extremely painful and involves severe mutilation and replacing their blood with a blue fluid. All traces of their previous human existence and memories are erased, and their mind is again tabula rasa. What develops is a distorted version of their original self, and often reflects the darker sides of their previous character. However, if they're deemed unworthy, they either face eternal torment in hell or get destroyed right away. But hey, destruction doesn't have to be forever, you know. In the first two films, destroying a human spirit left a psychic tear in space, and when blood was split on the tear, it unexpectedly enabled a physical resurrection. This rather macabre process allowed the victim to regain their humanity by feeding them fresh blood and flesh, much like a vampire, you see. If you want to outsmart those Cenobites and avoid being taken by them, just undo the whole Marchand box thing. Plain and simple. You see, these boxes hold the power to control the Cenobites, and every single Cenobite must follow these rules. A box must be open for the Cenobite to attack, and only the person who deliberately opened the box is a legitimate target. When you close a puzzle box, it forces all summoned Cenobites to return to hell. Contrary to popular belief, the Cenobites, despite being Leviathan's soldiers, aren't just another faceless army. There are a few who have the audacity to rebel and dare challenge Leviathan's authority. One such example is Alistair, aka Doomsayer, who rallied a band of rebellious Cenobites to test Leviathan's might. At one point, even Pinhead, aka the Hell Priest, managed to escape from hell and started playing by his own rules until he was manipulated into going back. Unfortunately, these uprisings were short-lived, as the rebels were eventually killed by their fellow Cenobites. Well, it seems that mortal weapons and attacks are no match for the invincible Cenobites, unless, of course, they're used by one of their own. Let's take a look at this scenario. When a human tries shooting a Cenobite with a gun, it doesn't even faze them. However, when Atkins, a Cenobite, uses an assault rifle on his fellow comrades, say Doomsayer, it becomes a whole different story. At this time, only their own kind of supernatural creatures or powerful deities like Leviathan or his sister have the ability to harm or kill them. In the movies, when a Cenobite dies, they transform back into humans. Fun fact, it turns out that Cenobites can, after all, be defeated by humans armed with a holy or magical weapon or artifact. Quite a useful piece of knowledge. When it comes to looks, Cenobites really know how to make a statement. They're easily recognizable by their terrible mutilations, along with body piercings that would make anyone wince, and black leather outfits. I think it's safe to say that they're not afraid to stand out in a crowd. How was Saucy Jack the Cenobite created? We're introduced to the workings of Jack the Ripper in the 7th issue of Hellraiser in the story of Under the Knife. It opens in a gritty, shadow-filled room in 1888 in London's East End. The place is Miller's Court, and it's no palace. It's a rough, dingy spot, but Mary Kelly feels lucky to have a place where she can return from her harlot's life on the streets in London. A storm is brewing outside, which makes the whole vibe kinda ominous. We see a man who's most definitely not there for a friendly chit-chat with Mary Kelly. Instead, he's got a knife in his hand, and the look on his face screams that he's here to do something sinister. This guy's no hero. Something terrible is about to go down. Then there's a police whistle echoing from somewhere nearby. The guy in the room is frantic and is searching for something, maybe something crucial, but there's no time. He's thinking fast, almost as if he's been cornered. We see a gloved hand covered in blood, and the man is tearing through flesh like it's nothing. There's a real sense of savagery as blood splatters around, a sight of horror, but there's this twisted satisfaction in what he's doing, as if he's finally obtained something he's been longing for. That's Jack the Ripper slicing flesh with swift and violent motion. Upon the murder of Mary Kelly, his 25th victim, Jack ripped out her heart, still fresh and dripping with blood. As he holds her heart up, he's finally achieved what he was seeking, a gateway to hell called the Heart of Damnation. Meanwhile, outside, the scene shifts to the street, where the police are on the move. They're talking about the twisted genius, likely referencing the madman inside, and they're trying to piece together what kind of man could commit such horrors. The man in charge, Detective Aberline, is a no-nonsense kind of guy and is clearly determined to get to the bottom of this. But there's a heavy realization that they're up against something more than just a murderer. In fact, it's too late to stop whatever evil has already been set in motion. It looks like Jack's luck has finally run out. Now that the cops are closing in, there's no way out for Jack. With his weapon drawn, the lead detective enters the room. Dimly lit, the room reeks of death. You can almost feel the dread through the pages of the comic as the detectives make their way inside. And there it is, the horrifying sight that could send a shudder through anyone. Mary Kelly's brutally slaughtered body lies on the bed, and there's no one else in the room. This was no work of a sane man. Upon closer inspection, the detective finds a blood-stained butcher's knife along with ashes, as something was burned in the room. Nothing makes sense. The only thing that's pretty obvious is that this wasn't some impulsive act of emotion. No, the killer took his sweet time and relished every moment. The scene then leaps forward to the year 1991 and opens in the chaotic newsroom of the Chicago Times-Journal, where Hank Wendell is instructed by his boss to cover the story of the Jack the Ripper reappearance, or at least a copycat killer following his gruesome style. When Wendell searches through old documents and publications for any crucial piece of information, he discovers some incredibly unsettling material. He comes across a postcard dated September 25, 1888, addressed to the press and signed by none other than Jack the Ripper. Yeah, you heard that right. The guy was taunting the media and mocking them. Browsing through the remaining pages, he stumbles upon a rather gruesome photograph, probably a snapshot of a crime scene and one of Jack's unfortunate victims. The brutal, graphic detail of the disfigured corpse is something you cannot just shake off. Wendell reflects on how the case haunted the public and the media. The Ripper was never caught, and that mystery plagued the city for many years. Wendell strolls down the wet street, tightly gripping a piece of paper. He stops at the building's door, still stained with blood and a grim reminder of the carnage that occurred there. Next, we see him chatting with a woman. With confidence in her voice, it's clear the lady knows her way around. However, her expression shows a sense of exhaustion, as if she's witnessed too much. In fact, perhaps a little too much. She asks if he's the police. Wendell, thinking she has the information he needs, something vital to solving the case, decides to go along with it. In an effort to make sense of what happened the night before, he presses her for specifics regarding the murder that took place there. However, she becomes defensive when Wendell attempts to provoke her further. She seems in no mood to play nice and is sick of discussing it. As he continues to pry, suddenly, something shifts in her. She loses her cool, and a slap lands on Wendell's face. She accuses him, like every other bloodsucker out there, of trying to exploit the situation and profit from the tragedy. Wendell comes clean. He denies being a police officer and explains that he's just a reporter seeking the truth. Regarding the recent murders of one Rebecca Lloyd, Wendell informs her that he has reviewed all the police reports and coroner's notes. He's researched the topic thoroughly and is familiar with the horrific, unsettling details that would make most people squirm. But he's not here to rehash old information and won't give up until all his questions are answered. Wendell shows the lady a photo of a woman and questions whether Rebecca looks similar when her body is discovered. The lady's loud silence was enough for Wendell to understand what was going on. It so happens that the lady in the photo was none other than Mary Kelly, the Ripper's last victim, before he vanished into thin air. Turns out, both women were killed in eerily similar ways. The two, Wendell and the lady, who introduces herself as Glenda Martinac, part ways and decide to meet up again once Wendell is done with his Ripper story. And later, they did. We find Wendell and Glenda in bed together, sharing a moment of quiet after what's clearly been a chaotic time. But things take a nasty turn when, out of the blue, Glenda stabs Wendell and yanks his heart out of the poor guy's body with her bare hand. No, I'm not exaggerating. With a wicked smile, she holds up a beating heart, and she's no less proud of it. What's creepy here is how casual she seems about it, which makes it clear this was all part of her plan. But the heart was no ordinary heart. It was the heart of damnation, and she was the second person to find it. It's revealed that while researching Jack the Ripper, Dr. Glenda Martinac became obsessed with the whole Ripper business. In order to summon the Ripper with the heart of damnation, she becomes a copycat killer, and thus began her murderous sprees in search of the right heart. She pulled the long con when she encountered Wendell, who was hungry to catch a break in the Rebecca killing. Glenda, on the other hand, used Wendell to have articles published about her murders because, apparently, a special kind of fire, a fire created from the words that celebrated murder can only open the puzzle of the heart of damnation. Yeah, pretty twisted, right? Glinda found success in her latest victim, Wendell. She then proceeds to burn the newspaper that had articles that had been written about her, solving the heart of damnation just as Jack the Ripper had done more than 100 years prior. The gateway opens, and Saucy Jack is summoned from hell. With knife-tipped mechanical hands and a chest with a hole that is held shut by hooks, Saucy Jack is determined to take Glinda straight to hell. She would gladly do so, and I have no doubt about it. Hank, horrified by what has happened, stabs the heart of damnation, which obviously doesn't sit well with Saucy Jack. Jack then embraces his OG Jack the Ripper side and unleashes his terror. He leads his Cenobites to kill Hank and Glinda and disappears back into the depths of hell. The crime scene is discovered, and there's an unmistakable feeling of shock in the air as they take in the terrible sight before them. Well, 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 looks like things got a little messy around here. Who knew a puzzle could bring such devastation? No more Sudoku for me! How is Saucy Jack different from other Cenobites? There are not many characters in the Hellraiser universe that can match the sheer terror of Saucy Jack. If I downplay it, Jack as a Cenobite is quite the spectacle. His wide, white eyes are a terrifying sight to see, while instead of hands, there's a rather horrific assortment of blades attached to a mechanical device that serve the sole purpose of hurting people. He wears the classic Cenobite outfit, a short cape with sleek black leather, but the true terror lies within his chest, which is split open and held together with hooks. He has complete control over this wound, which can be opened and closed at his command. Deep within it lies void and blackness, perhaps symbolizing emptiness. Surprisingly, Jack's hair and mustache are still intact, a peculiar remnant of his past life. Jack's intellect is as warped as his appearance, a violent maniac who shows no remorse for the many lives he's taken in his obsessive pursuit of the heart of damnation. Completely unhinged and violent to his core, he's driven by this deep-seated desire to dominate, punish, and drag others into the same pit of despair that consumes him. You can say he represents the worst shades of insanity and darkness. His presence alone is a chilling reminder of the immense power wielded by Hell, and makes him so horrible that even other Cenobites would hesitate to cross him. Marvelous verdict. The evolution of Saucy Jack from the infamous Jack the Ripper to Saucy Jack, a Cenobite, captures the eerie but ideal fusion of macabre and horror that Hellraiser is known for. His transformation from a feared killer who lurked in the dark corners of London streets into a deranged, knife-wielding demon from hell is a terrifying example of what can happen when you let unimaginable evil loose. The Hellraiser world changed a figure of fear into a Cenobite, which made him a creature of malevolence and sadistic intent. Put simply, wickedness maxed out. But that's not all that Saucy Jack is. He's the epitome of human evil, and his backstory fits nicely with the twisted, merciless universe of Hellraiser. Well, even the most twisted individuals can discover a fresh, even more chilling purpose in the depths of hell. There's no rest for the wicked, literally. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.